That's what makes it interesting, and you want to see if they're going to die. But you know,
that was NASCAR.
What?
I thought that was NASCAR that you're talking about.
But you know, but I find. But let me ask you a question. I find it. Okay, I'll ask you this question. When I see a picture from the rover, I'm more excited about it coming from the rover than if it came from an astronaut taking the picture, because the astronaut's using a camera, but the rover is taking it's part of the rover.
Let me tell you why that's probably not true, even though you think it is.
Okay.
Okay. Most people don't know that there were robots as well as rovers on the moon while we were first going to the moon. But you didn't know anything about those because the media focused on the astronauts. And it's the astronauts through which we gain vicarious access to space, because they have mouths, they have brains, they have a childhood memory, they have school teachers that can talk about those astronauts. And I've yet to see a ticker tape parade for a robot. So I submit to you that if at the same time the Curiosity rover landed, if at that same time a human astronaut landed on Mars, you would have known nothing about the Curiosity rover.
Yeah, but
it would have been relegated to page 30, and the front page headlines would have been humans put footprints on Mars. And it's that force which will bring less science than the robot that has a power of influence on our culture that inspires an entire generation to want to do the same thing. My generation, when you ask my fellow scientists, should we send humans into space? No, that's too expensive, send robots. Yet I said, how did you get interested in space? Oh, because of the Apollo program. And I slap them. I'm saying, what are you...
No, that's it. No, there would
on the other hand, if you remember, if Apollo 13 hadn't been the dramatic failure it was, they would have canceled the rest of the Apollo. They canceled 3 of the last missions.
End on that
There
note.
were 3 Saturn V rockets lying on the ground around space, around the country, because it was so interesting that they abolished the last 3.
No, that's delusional, and I'll tell you why.
It's not incorrect.
That's the facts.
No.
You can argue with the facts.
Watch me.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry. Everybody mentioned their book. It's time for me to mention my latest book.
I don't think anyone mentioned their book, actually.
My most recent book is titled Space Chronicles, and that wasn't the original title. The original title was Failure to Launch: The Dreams and Delusions of Space Enthusiasts. And the publisher says, that's too depressing. You can't have the word failure in your title. But that's what it's about. What you just said is a complete delusion. It presumes that we went to the moon for science. It presumes that we went to the moon to explore it. But that's not why we went to the moon.
Brother Neil, no, it is not. No, it is not.
We went to the moon because we were at war. Sputnik was not just some orbiting spacecraft. It was a hollowed-out intercontinental ballistic missile where they took out the warhead and put in a radio transmitter. The military knew this. That's what founded NASA. NASA's budget for science it averaged over all these years about 25%. The rest has been for geopolitical purposes. All right? So it's the I don't want to die driver in this world. That's why we spent all this money. And so the moment we learn Russia's not going to the moon and it's certainly not going to Mars, we canceled the program. It had nothing to do with public interest.
Okay, now let me... It is a... Let me try...
I got to pull back.
Yeah, you got to come in. But it is... let me try and bridge that gap a little bit.
I'm going to be silent.
No, you're not. I think it's really important to point out that this is a political issue. And in fact, me and Buzz Aldrin together testified before the House Science Committee on Space Exploration. And when I said that humans don't do science in space, I didn't argue, in fact, even before the committee, we shouldn't send humans into space. We should just say honestly why we're doing it. We're doing it for adventure. That's why we're doing it.
No, but that's not what funded it.
Hold on.
No, that's not true.
See, you said you wouldn't talk. But,
I did say.
Okay.
You can say that.
No,
but
hold on.
There's no there. Okay? No. Just look at the history of everybody doing big projects, and it's never driven by exploration. It's never driven by science. It's never driven by curiosity. Not if it's big and expensive. It's driven by the fact that people don't want to die. So there's a war driver. It's also driven by the fact that people want to get wealthy. So
No, hold on. We have the Large Hadron Collider.
The Large Hadron Collider.
The Large Hadron Collider.
Do you know?
Oh, no.
No.
Just proves my point.
The Large Hadron Collider. Please remind me of the total construction cost of the Large Hadron Collider.
I don't know, about 10 billion.
About 10 billion. That is 6 months of NASA funding. So you call that big budget? Not here in America, it's not.
Yeah, NASA's budget's about 17 billion. Doesn't go as far as it used to.
So it's expensive, but not on the scale that we're talking about here. That's all the countries share. That's not big money.
Okay.
Big money is a shuttle mission costs $1 billion here. I'm not saying it should cost that, but that's what it does. And who writes those checks? It's people who do it for geopolitical reasons, not because they care about science. Our super collider, the one that you would have benefited from, the superconducting super collider, started to get funding in the 1980s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
200-mile ring, it would have been...
No,
it would
60-mile ring.
60-mile diameter, the circumference.
60 miles around, yeah.
I thought it was 60 times
Well, take
pi.
it from me, it's 60.
Pi?
No, it's 60.
Okay.
Better story
Circumference
with
is 60 miles?
200, though.
Ryan?
60.
60.
Circumference?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I've been saying it wrong all these years.
Well, like
Never
a lot of
mind.
things.
Thank you.
Never mind.
Okay, no. So watch. So here's a super collider. America would have found the Higgs boson decades ago, all right? So what happens? The budget gets cut for reasons, the cost overruns are there. Excuse me, okay?
Yeah.
It got cut in the early 90s. What happened in 1989? Peace broke out in Europe. All of a sudden, the physicist, who was the hero of the 20th century for making the bomb, is no longer viewed as necessary to national security. And so the project gets cut like that.
Actually, you got it wrong. The project got cut actually for even sillier political reasons, which was the Texas congressional delegation voted the wrong way. And
If we were still at war, that would have never come up.
Okay.
It's also the International Space Station, right? I mean,
Yes, that's true. That's the top story. The bottom story is we no longer think
Look,
we're going to die.
So what let's leave this topic, but science and politics are, alas, inextricably mixed. And I think...
And politics wins every time.
I think what I would say is that it's vitally important for the public to understand what their issues really are, so they won't be lied to by the politicians effectively, and they can elect people to base policy on empirical evidence and not on ideology or anything else.
Story. Humans
Now.
tell stories.
Now.